everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney podcast. I'm Kimberley Bouchard, the author of the Positively Disney book series and your host for tonight's podcast. Thank you so much for dropping by this evening and taking a listen to my guest that I will introduce to you in a little bit. I hope you are enjoying a sunny day wherever you are. We are certainly enjoying a sunny Seattle day, which is a little unusual, chilly, but sunny. And I'm just curious to know how you Floridians are doing and Californians, if it is cooling off a little bit in your neck of the woods or if it's still sunny out. Anyways, I just want to thank my sponsor, Michelle McCune, over at Years of Experience. She will put together a vacation for you that is absolutely delightful, be it at Walt Disney World or a curated vacation in a place that you've always dreamed of going. And she will offer you texting access to her at all times. You give her your to-do list and bucket list, and she will do something pretty magical for you. You can reach her at MMCKEOWN at themouseexperts.com, and you can tell her that I sent you. So I don't know about you guys, but if you think back to the time period in your life between 5 years old and 10 years old, you will realize that there was actually a lot of pivotal times in your life at that time. I don't know whether you can remember every year, but I started thinking about that. And why I did is because the guest that I will be speaking with in a little bit, who lives in Marceline, Missouri, where Walt lived, he lived there from the ages of 5 to 10 years of age, but it affected him so much that it influenced him in designing the parks and in many, many aspects of his life. So I was kind of starting to think about that myself. Like, what is it? Did anything influence me between the ages of 5 and 10 years old? And I thought I would take a few minutes and share with you. So I don't know if I really realized that I was going to become an author, but I have found my grade 1 writing book where I actually got a little star for my work. And at that point in time, I was known as Kimmy, and Kimmy B actually was who I was known for in my class. But anyways, there's my first kind of go at writing down little letters, starting that journey. Something else I came across, and I was probably about 2nd or 3rd grade. We had just started handwriting. And I was really surprised to find that in my workbook here, I actually wrote down the following list: Bambi, Cinderella, Wizards of Oz, Snow White, Dumbo, Mother Goose, Myrtle the Turtle, Woody the Pooh, Three Little Pigs, and the Jungle Book. And I'm not too sure what it was, but apparently I got a check mark and I got them all right. So even back then in my school classroom, there was Disney going on. Before I go on to share another thing with you that's quite special, I just want to welcome Michelle from Florida listening in. Thank you, Michelle, for joining me tonight. So again, I did not realize that I was going to be a full-time author, that I was going to be writing. And I did come across some of this writing that I had done. And I was probably about 5th grade at this time. So I was about 9 years old. And in the little excerpt I'm going to share with you is the title of my very first book that I wrote. And my first book actually was in a blue duotang, something like this. And it was titled Memories of My Dog, Maxie. And I talked about what some of my hobbies were. And I said, I have a dog named Maximilian von Schmart I. His short name is Max or Maxie. He is a long wiener dog. I started a book when I was in grade 5. Maxie's birthday is on my dad's, which is November 3rd. When we went camping this year, we brought an old sleeping bag of mine with us for Maxie because he always is cold when we are in the mountains camping. So that's a little excerpt that happened after I wrote my first book called Memories of My Dog Maxie. And I think it's so fun to actually find things that remind you of your childhood. And definitely that kind of foundation set me up for what I'm doing today. And one other little thing I wanted to share with you. So I thought it was really fun. And this is even further back. This is probably when I was in kindergarten. And I have to smile because I have this picture of me. See Kimmy. And I have to smile because even back then, I loved bright colors. I loved to wear bright clothes and had a smile on my face. I was very fortunate to have a lovely childhood with wonderful memories in the summer of camping and rock hounding and with my dogs. And to this day, it's one of my places that I love, and probably why I like Fort Wilderness so much at Walt Disney World, with the whole natural kind of campy type of setting. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I found were pivotal times in my life between the ages of 5 and 10. Now, when you think about 5 and 10 years old, there's a big difference between a 5 and a 10-year-old, but you're pretty adept at a lot of things. Something about Walt that was kind of interesting is it's not there anymore in Marceline, but was an opera house that he went to see his the play of Peter Pan. He was so taken by that play that in elementary school, when the opportunity arose for a Peter Pan play, I guess that was kind of one of the big themes. It's always been a theme in so many different areas of schooling and drama in the early years. But at any rate, Walt actually got to play the part of Peter Pan while his brother Roy manned the mechanism that would make him fly. And when you think about it, that was a real metaphor for those brothers' lives, wasn't it? It was a real metaphor in the sense that, here you've got Walt flying with his dreams, doing something that he loves, that he is being a child, being exploring the wonderful things that only Peter Pan can explore. And his brother Roy has his back. And in this case, he's got all of Walt and will carry him through the next stage of the play. And I just love that. I just can imagine Walt just giggling his head off, being hoisted up, as Peter, and just really enjoying himself up on stage, while Roy would be just working hard to make sure that Walt's dreams of flying, or in later years of the parks, would come true. Well, I have to tell you that I actually drove not too far from Marceline earlier this year in July, and I was not able to stop to visit, unfortunately, but I will in my next round. And I realized that Marceline is actually 1,547 miles. So it's definitely a good 2.5 days travel for me to drive there. And I just have such fond memories of that whole area. So salt of the earth, really, of the people that lived there, and the farming community and that. And I think that honestly, that way of life and the heart of the people really impacted Walt. And when you see Marceline, when you see photos, I've only seen photos, but I do know people that have visited. When you see Marceline, you do understand in a heartbeat how it affected his design of Disneyland. Main Street USA was designed after his beloved Marceline. And Marceline, you can see, actually, they went from a dirt road to a brick road, I believe, while Walt was living there. So what do you have in Main Street USA? Well, you do have combined brick, and then of course the asphalt that you walk down, but it's very much a similar setting. A lot of things actually impacted his designs from his early days in Marceline. We're going to get our lovely guest, Kaye Malins, who lives in Marceline. I believe she's been there all her life. It's not a massive town, but it's definitely a town that was put on the map because of Walt. So we're just going to get her on the line in a moment, and I look forward. And again, if you have any questions for her, make sure that you type them in, and I will do my best to reach her and chat with her and ask the questions for her. So again, we're just going to get her on the line. If you have any questions, just type them in, and I will do my best to ask her and see if we have a chance to find out for you. So we're going to just dial her again. And again, I don't know, have any of you guys watching been to Marceline, Missouri, or in that area? Because it was after Marceline that Walt and his family moved to Kansas. Actually, they were they didn't stay there very long. There was it was very difficult on the farm at that time, and Walt's older brothers had had helped. Let's see, Elias, there was Roy, and I'm trying to remember the third brother. I think it was Robert. I'm not positive, but his three older brothers helped out on the farm. And we're just going to get Kaye on the line here. So yeah, I'm just curious if any of you listeners have been to Marceline. Hi, Kaye, welcome
Hello.
to the show. Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, this is Sue, right?
Yes, welcome to the show. Yes, we are live and we're looking forward to talking to you, Kaye. How are you doing over there in Marceline?
I am doing great. It is a very cold, crisp, clear night here, so life is good.
Good, awesome. Yeah, it's cold and crisp here, but I don't think as cold as you guys out there.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Kaye, yeah, Kaye, I was talking just a wee bit about Marceline, not very much to give anything away, but something that I think is absolutely amazing. I had not really known anybody before you that actually met the man himself in your living room. How in the world did it come to pass that you met Walt Disney in your living room?
Well, I was it was very special. How it happened was Marceline's always been a very progressive little town.
Okay.
We're 2,333 good and talented people currently.
Mm-hmm.
But we had decided in 1954 that we wanted to be the first town in our county to have a public swimming pool. So they passed a bond and they built a pool. And because it was going to be the very first pool in our county, they thought it needed a great name.
Okay.
So my dad was on the city council,
mm-hmm.
and he goes, "Well, how about Walt Disney?" Nobody thought that Walt would think it was a good idea. He thought it was a wonderful idea.
Oh.
And his first letter back was, "Well, I want to come, and Lillian wants to come, and Roy wants to come, and Edna wants to come, so we're all coming to Marceline."
Oh.
So yeah, so you can imagine how excited everyone here was that the Disneys are coming, the Disneys are coming, and then the reality snuck in, and it's like, oh my gosh, where are they going to stay, and how are we going to entertain them? Well, the entertaining really wasn't a problem. Everybody wanted to host them, as you can imagine.
Sure.
So that was planned really easy. But our hotel in Marceline was an old hotel. It was kind of run down, and the Disneys were coming over the 4th of July. And I don't know where all your listeners are from, but if you've ever been in the Midwest on the 4th of July, it is hot and sticky and humid.
Mm-hmm.
So my folks had just built a brand new ranch-style air-conditioned house. So one night at the council meeting, they said to my dad, "Hey, how about the Disney stay with you?" Well, my dad thought it was a great idea, so he said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he came home and told my mom, and my mom cried because
Oh,
they were they were a fairly young couple, and
okay.
they had spent everything they had on this new air conditioned house,
Wow. Yeah.
and and her furniture was all hand me down.
Okay.
So she told her friends that she just didn't think she could do it. Everybody go, "Oh no, you have to have them because you have the air conditioning."
Yeah.
So so all her friends came and they said, "Okay, don't worry about it. We'll move your junk out. We'll move our better stuff in."
Oh my
So
gosh. So the people that like her
yeah,
friends, like they donated their own furniture. Oh,
yeah,
classic.
for Walt and you know. So the Disney's arrived, and of course there was a big reception the night they got here, and but they came to our house, and it was really. Yeah, the very first time I met Walt and Roy and Lily and Edna, they were standing in our living room, and I I was 8 years old
Okay.
then.
Yeah.
I was fairly precocious at 8,
Okay.
and so I looked at Walt and I said, "What room are you going to sleep in?" And he
Oh,
said, "Well, what room should I sleep in?"
yeah.
I said, "Well, the pink one."
Oh,
I would have. So my claim to fame as a child was that Walt and Lily and Disney did indeed sleep in my pink room.
oh. Oh, isn't that great? Oh my gosh. That's so fun. I love it. Oh, I was thinking back when you said the air conditioning, because air conditioning, that's a huge deal back then. I mean, they didn't have people didn't have air conditioning.
No, it was 1956,
Wow.
and that was the year after they opened Disneyland. So Walt was really really famous. I mean, he
Right.
was anyway. He was really famous, and
Yeah.
and I had seen him on TV, and so that was pretty darn exciting having
I
at your house. Yeah.
Absolutely. My gosh. How long did they stay? Okay. How long were they there for?
That well, that first time they were there for 4 nights.
Okay. All right. And so you guys had them there for 4 nights, and so you said everybody kind of took care of the entertaining. So did they go to different people's houses then for dinner, or
Yes.
oh, they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
for
They did,
goodness
and then
sakes.
one night there was a big like community kind of picnic.
Right.
But yeah, they went and they arrived on the train.
Oh.
Walt had Walt had flown into Kansas City, but he said he wanted to take the train into Marceline because that's how he had arrived here as a child.
Oh
So,
gosh. Yeah.
yeah.
Gee,
So they took the train in.
that just gives me chills, because a lot happened on a train for him. I mean, Mickey happened
Oh yeah.
on the train, and I think that is absolutely wonderful. Now, just out of curiosity, is your swimming pool still there, and is it still named the Walt Disney swimming pool,
Well,
or
we tried the pool. The pool is still there.
okay.
We kept it working for 55 years,
Wow.
and it just wouldn't keep water anymore. We
Oh,
had done everything we could to try to keep it. So it's still in Disney Park. We have Walt Disney Park here in Marceline.
okay.
It's still in the park, but we voted a bond. Again, we are still a progressive little town. We
Right.
voted a bond, and we have a new pool.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. So now okay, so that was the first time you met Walt Disney. Now you met other family members after that, I believe, right?
Yes, yes. Well, I met Walt and Roy then. I never met Herbert and Raymond, but
Okay.
I knew Ruth
Raymond.
really, really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when
I didn't know the Clovis brothers. I never met them.
okay. So Ruth, I don't know how much younger Ruth was than Walt. Quite a bit,
Just a couple of years.
just a couple
No.
years. Okay.
Yeah,
And
they were very close.
okay. How did you meet Ruth, and how did that friendship develop?
Well, Ruth had kept in contact with all of her Marceline friends. And
Okay.
one of her friends, Clem Flickinger, was a neighbor of mine. So Ruth really came to Marceline, and Clem said, "Oh, there's somebody I want you to meet."
Oh,
So yeah, so Ruth came to the house, and we had a lovely time together, and we just clicked. And I think she was really wanting somebody here that she could contact when she had questions, or because being the last of the siblings
right.
of Walt's siblings living, she was contacted a lot
Mm.
by people wanting her to write a foreword in a book or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like weird stuff, like uh somebody was trying to sell her the post off the front of the Disney farm.
Oh,
you
oh,
know,
that's bizarre. Oh my
so I
gosh.
mean, there were things like that too. So she told us, "Are the posts still there?" I go, "Yes, Bruce,
Yeah.
they're still here."
Yeah. Oh, for crying out loud. So, what were the family members like? I mean, I think you had the opportunity to see them on several occasions, right? Because they did go back more times, I think, other than uh the
Yeah.
pool.
And Walt actually was here frequently over the last 10 years of his life.
Okay.
And Marceline was founded by the Santa Fe Railroad, so we were a division point on the Santa
Okay.
Fe.
Okay.
So we had, at one time, we had 7 passenger trains a day. So
7
it
passenger
was,
trains.
yeah, yeah,
That's
we were the main line. We were the
wow.
main line to Los Angeles and Chicago.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so we had a lot. So and Walt loved to ride on the trains, and
Mhm.
so it was nothing for me to pick up the phone and it would be, "Hey Kay, this is Walt. I need to talk to your dad. I'm at the station."
Oh.
So because he'd be going east, or he'd be going back to California,
Okay.
and he would have an idea of something he wanted to talk about, and he goes, "I'm just going to take the next train." So, or maybe he spent the night and took train the next day.
Oh, goodness sakes. And what's interesting is, when you met him in your living room, he was famous, but he became, I mean, even bigger. I mean, the whole Disney name became greater and greater. And then to have him go into Marceline. Now, I don't think that a lot of people knew that he would be coming by. I'm assuming.
No, when he wanted people to know he was here, people knew. But when he didn't want people to know, and that's the same thing we do now with any of Disney family that comes.
Right.
We, if they want people to know they're here, fine. If they don't, that's fine too.
Yeah, no, and that's it's nice. It's like a bit of a safety net and a reprieve, I guess, from the outside world when you can trust people in your town,
Yeah,
to keep them the others away, and they don't have to be hounded, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? I can appreciate that for sure. Now, you actually live in the Disney home. How in the world did that happen?
well, when Walt and Roy were here in 1956, Walt really sent a list ahead of time of the things he wanted to be sure he saw again.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't know at that time. He had been here in 1943
Okay.
with a movie camera
Ah,
that he had taken home movies of places in Marceline that were important to him. So he'd given kind of a list of the things he wanted to be sure that he saw, because he was excited about he and Roy seeing them together and be able to share them with their wives.
okay.
And so it was on that visit in '56
Hmm.
that Walt was kind of an unfulfilled dream to my dad. He said, "I would like to own my boyhood home farm again."
Oh,
And he said, "You can buy it cheaper than I can," to my dad, so go buy it. So they became partners on what Walt was planning on doing in Marceline. He called it his Marceline project.
okay.
So So Dad purchased the farm and had options on several hundred acres around it, and plans were moving really along. But then Walt's untimely death,
Yeah.
and then Roy came out of retirement to finish Walt Disney World, so things here were just kind of put on hold.
Mm-hmm.
After Roy opened Walt Disney World, he called my dad and he said, there's a couple of things that we're just not going to do, and Marceline is one of them. Okay. So they sold the land back to my dad. Okay. But Walt and Roy were doing this not through the Disney company.
Right.
They were doing it through Retlaw. Right. Through their own private company. Right. So it was just a real heart connection for them. And when Walt wasn't part of it anymore, Roy just, and Roy wasn't feeling well. Mm-hmm. He was ill. Yeah. Even finishing the world. So at the time, it just wasn't right. So mm-hmm. So when my husband and I graduated from college and we decided to come back here, Dad said, well, you want to live in the house, so you decide what you do. And that was a very long time ago. And we decided to stay here.
I think that's amazing. And I was curious to know. So when Walt directed your dad to purchase the home and the acres around it, what had it just been abandoned? Like, was it just sitting there, or did somebody else own it like before that? Or
no, his people had lived in the house. It had never been empty. And it had always been a working farm. So it was, it had never been abandoned.
Okay. Well, I wasn't too sure about, I didn't think so, but then just to offer to purchase it, to preserve it, I think that is, that's amazing, really, to be able to acquire something from your childhood, like your home, to live it, because most of us wouldn't have that opportunity at all to purchase your house or anything like that. What do you think? What did they have in mind, do you think, Kaye, in purchasing his home? Was it just going to basically preserve it and as a kind of a historic site, do you think? Or what, do you know what they were going to do before?
Walt was such a visionary. He said, there'll come a time when a child will not know what an acre of land is. There'll come a time when a child will not know what happens when you put a seed in the ground. Mm. So his idea was to have a 1900s working farm here with Disney educational values. Because he wanted the children to know how self-sustaining they were when he lived here. Okay. And how things were done. So he, a lot of the plans were drawn. Mm-hmm. The governor of Missouri was putting a 4-lane highway into Marceline.
Oh, wow.
So things were really moving along.
On one of the attractions at Epcot, Living with the Land, I don't know if you've been on that, Kaye. I love it because it's all about hydroponic gardening, and there's one scene, and anybody that's been to Epcot on that attraction know there's one scene on the left with a rooster, just a very noisy rooster, but there's this beautiful little white farmhouse, and I always love that part because it reminds me of the farmlands of yesteryear. Something really attracts me to that, and I can't help but think that was a bit of a nod to, just that time period and what Walt was trying to do in with his old boyhood home.
Yeah, Marceline never left his heart or his mind. Yeah. We were always there, and there are so many references to his time in Marceline. Like, it's one of my favorite Disney movies, and it's not a well-known one, but it's so dear to my heart. And he said, why, that's just the life my brother and I lived on the farm in Marceline. And there are 22 references to Marceline in that movie.
Which movie?
They're subtle.
Okay, which movie is this?
It's called So Dear to My Heart.
Oh, so dear
to my heart.
So dear to my heart. Okay, gee, I wonder.
So dear to my heart.
Okay, we're all going to be looking for that on Disney Plus tonight, I think.
Yeah. It's just the sweetest sweetest little movie. And,
Okay.
for instance, after you see the movie, one of the things that's very obvious in it is, this little boy is trying to get the Maine to take his prize sheep to the county fair.
Okay.
And so he tries to earn money. He tries to do all these things, but he goes out and finds a honey tree. Um, and the honey tree is in a cottonwood tree. And that's what Walt's dreaming tree was here in Marceline.
I
It's a
was
big old cottonwood.
just going to
So,
ask you about that tree.
yeah. So I mean, all through and through the parks and everything, there were just, especially Disneyland, there are just wonderful, subtle references to Marceline. Um, and even today in Tokyo, there's Marceline references. And I was speaking at Disneyland Paris, and one whole restaurant, because we provide the photos for them, are photos of Marceline. So Disney has not forgotten us.
And it will not be forgotten because of not only people like you, but people that want to carry the spirit of Walt, uh, you know, continuing to carry the spirit of Walt. And what's I love is that is such a foundation. Like Walt had grandiose plans that came to fruition, but he always remembered to say, let's not forget that it all started with a mouse. And I think he was really centered when he was there. I think he really got grounded. And I suspect that's one of the reasons why he kept returning there, because I think it was a real grounding for him.
Well, I agree with you. And, you were asking about the tree.
Yes.
When Walt and Roy were here in 1956, we knew a little bit about the tree happening, but we didn't know how important it was to him.
Okay.
Walt and Roy were actually like two little boys that day because they were reminiscing. And, they would go, remember when we did this? And how about that? And Lily and Edna just sat back and let them go. It was fun to watch. But
so what can you tell the audience? Yeah, please share with the audience the significance of the tree. And you said it was an old cotton tree, so I would imagine that would have been quite a large tree.
Yeah, it was a huge tree. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Walt's dad, I know you've all read this, was a pretty tough taskmaster. And, he didn't think his son should be daydreaming. He didn't think he should be drawing when he was a child on the farm, because it was pretty hard work.
Yeah.
And everybody was working, and Walt was old enough to be doing something. But some of the times he was charged with taking care of his little sister, Ruth. Mm-hmm. So they would go down to this big, huge cottonwood here on the Disney farm. And he said that's where he very first started to draw. He'd lie on his stomach and he'd observe nature around him, and then he would begin to sketch it. And Ruth told me that he would do a drawing for her, and then he'd make up a right good story to go along with
it. I love that.
Yeah. So she had very fond memories of the Dreaming Tree as well.
Yeah.
So they were thrilled when they're back in '56. Walt looked at Roy and said, "Oh my gosh, it's still here! It's still here!"
Yeah.
So it was important to him.
Well, that's really actually amazing that tree would have been there, and because it's very easy to cut down a tree, to make room for something else. Now that tree lasted for years and years, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Actually, American Forest Historic Tree Nursery in Jacksonville, Florida came, and they heard the story, and they collected seeds from historic trees all over the United States.
Oh, wow.
And from historic property. So they came and did the testing, to make sure, and we were thrilled to have somebody do that.
Right.
And so we learned a lot. And at that time, they asked if they could collect some seeds off of it. Mm-hmm. And we said, well, sure. And the reason they did that is because they sold kits of seeds from historic properties.
Oh.
But at that time, all the money went to reforest areas that had had a natural disaster of some kind.
Oh, wow.
So they collected 1.5 million seeds off the tree.
Wow,
And
that's a lot of
it
seeds.
was,
Holy
yeah, and
cow.
it was, well, yeah, and the city brought their cherry picker thing out so that they could
Go
collect
high up in
them,
the
without them falling on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
It was quite fun watching that. They had big paper sacks that they were putting all these seeds in.
Wow.
But yeah, so our tree was there forever and ever. And then one night I heard this lightning. I heard after
The
it hit,
crack? Oh
and
no.
I heard, yeah, and I knew something happened, but
Oh.
I didn't know what. But I went down to check on the property, and tree looked okay, and it looked okay. And I went around the back, and oh man, it had been hit hard. So I called my friend who's head of horticulture at Disneyland and told her what had happened, and they sent somebody out, and they said, well, there's nothing they could do, but and told me exactly what was going to happen. That it was going to look fine, and then things were going to start falling off, and that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, it's
because we had American Forest had collected the seeds, I called them. This was before the tree even got hit, but one of Walt's grandsons wanted to come back and do something on the farm. And they wanted to plant a tree. So I called American Forest, and they sent us a sapling.
Oh.
And so the family came. Yeah, so the family came in, and 3 Walt Disney World ambassadors came up from Florida, and they brought soil from the hub and water from the rivers of America, and they planted Son of Dreaming Tree not too far from the original.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so when you walk down the Disney farm today, it's about 40 feet tall now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So you can walk by the site where the original tree was. We have signage and stuff, so you can walk by, and then you can see the Son of Dreaming Tree growing very proudly.
Oh, how special is that? Thank goodness they got those seeds at that time. I mean, oh my gosh.
Oh, I know.
That lightning could have hit at any time because it was so big, Thank goodness you guys got seeds. Wow. Wow. So now you were talking about signage and things like that. So I would imagine people want to come by and see the house. But before we go on to that, you have the Walt Disney Walt Disney Family Hometown Museum there. Now, tell us about that, and does that kind of coincide with your signage and the tree and all that near your house?
Sure. We were, as I told you, Ruth was a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
And in one of our conversations, she said, I want you to have my stuff. And I thought, okay, I didn't know what she was talking about. And she passes away, and her only son, Ted, called me and said, Mom wanted to have you to have her stuff. And I go, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, why don't you just come out here? So I flew out to Oregon, and they didn't know what they had. They had stuff in sacks and under beds and tops of closets, and we started taking it out, and I go, oh my gosh, because I had flown out. This is before 9/11, of course, and I flew out with an empty suitcase, thinking there'd be enough stuff for an exhibit at City Hall or something.
Right.
But long story short is I wasn't going to take anything until they knew what they had. So I spent about a year. I came back to Missouri. I got some help from Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City, and we went back out with scanners and cameras, and we documented 3,000 documents and photos and albums and things like that.
Wow.
And Ruth wanted to tell the story of the family in Marceline. So I promised her I would do that.
Yeah.
And so
that's how the museum was born, right?
That's how the museum was born. Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
because
Yeah.
of a promise I made to Ruth.
Oh, thank goodness you're upholding her, that you upheld her promise, I should say. I mean, now this museum is open to the public, right? You do tours, you guys, I think, and
Sure,
okay,
sure. We are open 6 days a week,
okay,
and we are in the as I said, we were a division point on the Santa Fe, so we have a
right,
had a very large train station,
okay,
and so we about the time we received the collection, we were able to purchase the train station, which had been derelict for about 30 years,
wow,
and received federal grant to stabilize it and get it going. But it's 1913 is
oh,
when it
wow,
was built, and we have great pictures of Walt and Roy at
yeah,
that station.
yeah,
But anyway, so we have lovely exhibits there. We are open 6 days a week. Be sure and check our Facebook page and our website.
okay, great,
Every, with COVID, things are a little different right
right,
now.
right,
But we're planning on opening. We close for 2 months in the winter because the weather just isn't conducive to
right,
having tours here.
right, sure, yeah,
But yeah, we're opening February the 2nd,
oh,
and
nice,
we are open every day but Monday.
okay,
We're closed on Monday,
perfect,
and our hours are 10 to 4,
okay.
Tuesday through Saturday, and 1 to 5 on Sunday.
Well, I think that is absolutely amazing because we've got, of course, the Family Museum in San Francisco, but this centers on the 5 year to 10-year-old Walt and his life, which was such a pivotal time in his life. And I think that's brilliant. And I think it was really a great forethought for Ruth to think, gee, you know what? I want something to tell the story back in Marceline. I think that was perfect thinking on her part, actually, because otherwise we wouldn't know. We wouldn't be aware of that time, really. A little bit here and there, but to actually have things, my gosh. Um, what now? Can you share any stories, other stories with the Disney family or with Ruth that you might have with us?
I think one of the fascinating stories about Ruth is um, when Walt died, it was in all the papers that he had a sister in Portland, Oregon. And so she opened the door one day, and there was a paparazzi, and she shut the door, and they stayed in a camper motorhome for about a year
Oh, yeah.
because she didn't want to deal with the press.
Oh,
And
wow.
her son, she had one son, Ted, and he was never allowed to tell anyone he was a Disney.
Okay.
It wasn't that she wasn't proud.
Mm-hmm.
She was fiercely proud. And the collection, we got a lot of. I mean, she saved every scrap of information, and she and Walt and Roy were extremely close. I mean, extremely close.
Beautiful.
And but she just So Ruth was a very private person. I think that's fascinating. I think it speaks to what a strong person she was as well.
For
Because it'd
sure.
been real easy to say, yeah. Um, so I love that about her. And it was interesting all the years that my dad, the last 10 years of Walt's life, when Dad was working on the Marceline project with him,
Mm-hmm.
His memory came flooding back about Marceline.
Uh,
It was, and Ruth also, when we were going through all of her things, she had a address book that was titled "My Marceline Friends,"
oh.
and as people would move or something, it would be scratched
Right.
out, and then the new
Yeah.
address would be there. But it's interesting to me, and there was a book written about Roy too that he talked about, and I knew that Roy felt close to Marceline, but I didn't know how much until I read this book.
Mm-hmm.
And and Diane told me, Diane Disney Miller told me that until she was an adult, she thought her father had spent his entire childhood in Marceline because it's all he ever talked about.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so the times here, and I've often thought, of course, that was the perfect time and perfect age to be on a farm
Yeah.
for Walt.
Yeah.
And when he left Marceline, he went to work.
Right. Yeah. Was
And
young.
so really, yeah, so really in Marceline, he got to be a kid.
Yeah. I can't help but think that those precious years is what he tried to emulate in his parks, right? Like to be a child
You're
again,
exactly right.
like that
And
feeling.
I think too, I think too, like at Disneyland, Walt made the decision for you that everybody had to walk down Main Street, USA.
Yes.
Everybody had to experience that period of his childhood.
Yeah.
And, then you can make your own decision where to go.
Right.
But Walt wanted everybody to experience Marceline.
I absolutely love Ruth telling you that it was a right darn good story that he had to share with you with his drawings, because he was all about story, right? I mean, that's what makes us who we are, our stories. And when you think about after you finish walking down Main Street, I mean, you could start seeing the stories evolve in front of you. You got the castle, you got Fantasyland, you've got Adventureland, you got Frontierland, you got Tomorrowland, the future. I mean, those are individual stories, like that he built on. Oh wow. Boy, there was so much to him.
There was indeed.
Wow. You are so fortunate in so many ways to live where you live, not only in a town such as that, but to have been friends with the family, to live in the home, and to be such a big part of the museum. What would you say, Kaye, is the best part of what you do? What do you think that is?
Oh gosh, it's all pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem. I like my life. I like my life a lot.
Yeah.
I would say, like we're doing now, sharing.
Okay.
And making sure that people realize there was a real man.
Yes.
That had a real family.
Yeah.
That it's just not a brand, but he's a real man that loved life, loved his family, and was just so far ahead of the time. I mean, the man never quit thinking. He always figured out how to make it work.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Which never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, exactly. And thank goodness he had Roy there that was right on board with him, because they needed both of them. They needed each other.
It was interesting because like when we go to the studio or something, it was always Roy who took care of me. So Roy was, and we have letters from in Ruth's collection where she talks about, Roy, the funny one. And, I most people don't think of Roy being funny.
Right.
But he really was.
Oh.
Yeah, he really was.
Well, I think that's kind of fun to know that tidbit there because, he was the business guy. He was kind of the all business guy. And Walt was, the one that he had to probably rein in a few times or kind of give him the, okay, if you want to do this, we got to do this. And he was such a numbers guy. But I mean, isn't that lovely that he had a sense of humor? Because I think Walt always believed in seeing the humor in many things. I mean, you had to have that in you to create what you do, what he did, you had to have humor in that, especially the things that he went through. I mean, it wasn't an easy road for him at all. I was just wondering, so, I mean, you have some life lessons. I mean, you have been a part of a legacy far greater than any of us, far greater than the parks, the movies, the it's the foundation, which I think is so important. The foundation has to be okay, in order for other things. And I was just wondering, is there any kind of life lessons that you learned from Walt or your dad that you could share with us? Because you have a good life. I know you do. And I'm just curious to know if you have any life lessons you learned from those two guys.
I would say the biggest lesson I learned from Walt and my dad, and they were really similar in a lot of ways, is if you ask someone's opinion, listen. Listen to everything they have to say, and then let them know you appreciate their point of view. And I just think that's a lesson. I think if we all listened more, everything would be better. And that is, I would say that's the primary thing that I learned from Walt and my dad.
Oh, I love that. Boy, that's pretty powerful. You know what? I have to honestly say I've never heard that statement before. I love that. I'm going to write it down after to remind myself, because if you ask for an opinion, instead of getting all flustered about something, you just listen and show your appreciation so that other people will give you their opinion, continue giving their opinion, because you don't want people to get mad at if you're asking, right? You want to be able to be open to other opinions like that. That's very strong. Kaye, I've got a question from a listener, and I really want to ask you this before we wrap up. But he's asking you, how did you feel going to Disneyland after you had met the family? Did you view the park a little bit differently, like on a more personal level?
Yeah, well, the first time I went to Disneyland, it was with Walt and Roy Disney. And
oh, wow.
So my childhood at Disneyland was, I mean, we were spoiled. My brother and I didn't know there were lines or anything.
Oh,
we wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So I had a pretty skewed view of what Disneyland was. I thought it was magic. I thought it was wonderful. But Walt, when I turned 18, Walt and my dad were talking, and Walt said to my dad, "I bet if Kaye applies for a job at Disneyland, she would get one." So I applied, and I got a job, and I was supposed to go in the spring after my first freshman year of college.
Okay.
And Walt died that winter. And so I decided I wasn't going to go.
Okay.
So Dad called Roy and told him I wasn't going to come. And I just didn't feel right about going.
Right.
But a couple weeks later, I got a call from Roy, and he said, "We got a job for you, and we're counting on you coming out to help us." And so, of course, I went. And it was a wonderful. I'm glad I did it. Yeah. I mean, I still have friends that were working there when I was working there, but it wasn't as big then.
Yeah.
The parks, there were as many as employees.
Right.
And I think that part was special to me because back then we went to traditions, and it was a week. I mean, before you went on stage, you had a week of traditions.
Oh.
And and a big part of that was about Marceline.
Of course. Yeah.
So I always felt very special, and I still do when I go into a park.
Yeah.
Knowing I am from Marceline.
Yeah. Gosh. I'm just curious, what did you do there for that summer, Kaye?
My very first job was on the Carousel of Progress when I came back from the World's Fair.
Oh, one of my favorites.
I was on the very first. Yeah.
Oh, my
I was on the first crew.
Oh, wow. Wow. I actually have behind me and to my which shoulder, this shoulder, I have a Carousel of Progress poster that's framed and it's signed by Richard Sherman, not Robert Sherman. He wasn't alive at that point, but Richard Sherman signed it, and that's how much I love Carousel of Progress. That what a fantastic. So you had different jobs then that summer. You did Carousel Progress and
Yeah, well,
oh, okay.
I no that was
Oh,
my first summer, and I did
oh,
Carousel Progress all that summer,
oh,
and
okay.
then I went back summers in college, and I did guest services after that.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. So, God, I've got more questions than we have time for. I'm gonna have to probably call you again after the fact, but I thought I'd let people know that Kay and her story are going to be in book 6 of the Positively Dizzy series because, Kay, I think just you're sharing the family legacy such a foundational time in Walt's life and everything to do with the family. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and thank you so much for honoring your friend's request, for the rest, so that the rest of us can get to know that really important part of Walt's life too.
Well, and thank you. And for any of your listeners, if any of you are in the Midwest, um, we have a cartooning festival here the third Saturday in September every year, and this year is all Disney artists that are going to be in Marceline. So be sure and keep checking. Again, with COVID, we're hoping by fall
Right. Yeah.
everything will be fine, but
Yeah.
just keep checking.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and then this year our music gala is in Marceline on the Disney farm under a big huge tent.
Oh,
And
nice.
our guest speaker is Tom Nabby, who was the very first Tom Sawyer at
Right.
Disneyland. So and
Right.
Tom and I have been buddies a long time. So he's been to Marceline before, but he's coming back for that. So any of you are in the
Oh.
Midwest, just come.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you, when I had driven by, I was not like right beside Marceline at all, but I really wanted to stop and we just couldn't last summer. And that is on my bucket list to do this year. I just have to. And I look forward to meeting you out there. And for anybody, I just want to mention that you guys can check out their Facebook page, which would be Disney Family Hometown Museum. Is that your Facebook page?
Yeah, no, not family. It's a Walt Disney Hometown Museum.
Okay, Walt Disney Hometown Museum. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kay, so much for taking the time this
Thank
evening
you
to
all.
share with us. It was such a delight having you on, and I will let you go now, and so that our you can get on with your evening because I know you're a bit ahead of us in the time. But it was so nice to chat with you again, as always. You're such a plethora of delightful information. I'll tell you, it was just wonderful. Thank you, and listen, you take care, and we'll be in touch.
Everybody have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Thanks. Okay, bye bye. Gosh, I have to tell you that I really, really feel blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and it's particularly I feel like that, and it reminds me tonight, after getting to have a glimpse into Walt, the man, and hearing just a little bit about his boyhood home, I think it just makes my heart smile. And I hope this show has made your heart smile as well. I want to wish you guys a very good evening, a wonderful weekend. And until we see you next Friday, same time, take care and stay safe and God bless. Bye for now.